Well, I have officially completed the gamer pilgrimage. Hi, I'm Cap Bergerson, and I'm trying to hold my head in such a way that the lights don't reflect off my glasses. From April 6th to 26th, I was in Japan. We spent a week in Tokyo, and then 2 weeks in Osaka, with a day trip to Kyoto thrown in the mix. And I'm here to talk to you about it. And yes, there are timestamps. So if you find yourself not caring about something, or there's only one particular topic that you care about, just go ahead and check it out below. Now, you may be wondering why I am even making this video. My typical content is essay-style game design analysis, and that's not what this is. But the long story short is that I like making stuff. And as it turns out, ever since becoming a full-time content creator, even while on vacation, I just can't switch off. But I promise, there's a lot of Nintendo stuff here, so it kind of feels relevant, right? Besides, video is just a fun way to share my experience with you. Plus, now that I'm making content about it, suddenly this trip was a business expense that I can write off on my taxes. Makes you look at travel vloggers a little differently now, doesn't it? Jokes aside, this was a family trip. My wife has folks that live over there, and it was great to see them. But that's not the focus of the video. I struggled a bit writing this video, hence it coming out so much later after my trip ended, so my apologies for that. I couldn't quite decide what format of video I even wanted to make, but I realized after the fact that I took a lot of photos, about 1,500 of them, basically 500 photos a week, but not that many videos. So I guess I figured I ought to be on screen so that you have some sort of non-static element to look at. But now I'm rambling. Let's hop into it. And sorry if I butcher all the pronunciations. So we left the morning of Sunday, April the 6th. Took a 10-hour flight, which I just couldn't sleep on, and landed in Japan on Monday afternoon, essentially skipping most of Sunday. Some would call this crossing the international date line, but I prefer to call it time travel. One of our first excursions in Tokyo took us to the Shinjuku-Gyoen National Gardens, and it was the perfect time of year to go because of the cherry blossoms. It was gorgeous. A perfect way to spend the afternoon. We also went over to Shibuya Crossing, which you may know as the inspiration for that one episode of Futurama with the dog. He's called Hachiko, by the way. They've got a big statue of him there, or you may know it as the world's busiest pedestrian crossing intersection. And yes, I did cross it twice, although I'll admit I'm not like a big fan of crowds, so it was like almost a little intimidating just being there. And while we were waiting to cross, I kept thinking, man, it would suck to be in that van right now. Now, of course, we had to stop at the Nintendo Tokyo store. As a big Legend of Zelda fan, the selection of goodies was wonderful. I spent too much money. My son has been on a massive Pikmin kick lately, which, can you blame him? Pikmin is great, and we were pleasantly surprised at just how much more popular Pikmin is there compared to back home. There was as much store dedicated to Pikmin as there was Zelda or Animal Crossing. Likewise, Splatoon is huge there, and that's my wife's obsession. So it was kind of perfect. It really felt like there was a little something for everyone. So here's what we got. So the first immediate yes, I had to get this boss key keychain. I have a video series all about Zelda dungeons, so I just felt like having the boss key, it just felt right. I also got this little pin. If you've only played Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, you probably think this is the Korok mask, but if you've played Wind Waker, you know this is the face of the best Korok, Makar. With both of these, they're like fully metal. I'm actually really surprised at how, like, these feel like really high-end, high quality. This is especially hefty. It's a heavy metal keychain. Like, not like heavy metal, but like it has weight to it, you know? I got this guy. He needs help finding his friend. Now, unfortunately, after getting this guy, I found out that they actually have larger Koroks that you could mix and match, like choose a Korok and a backpack to go with it and sort of mix and match them. This is one of the sort of smaller little backpack Koroks. However, what I didn't know until after I bought the guy, his bag opens up. Reusable shopping bag. It's cute. It's got a little pattern, they look like leaves, but those are actually the shapes of various Korok faces. Masks? Very cute little shopping bag. I love the pattern. I'm never going to use it. We're just going to roll it back up how it was and stick it back in here. And it does have like a little Velcro stripe to keep his bag shut. There he is. I didn't notice as well, this one opens up too. I don't know what you would keep in there, but there is a little pocket. They had a little gacha machine that was full of these guys. They're little like Zonai devices. I don't know, I just couldn't resist, I guess. It just kind of is perfect because it's like, oh, they have basically, they don't look quite the same as the ones in game. They should have made that though. But it's cool to see that they've got the little capsules. So, we got a rocket. That's good. And it comes with a little, I guess it's a base, like a little stand that is a magnet, I think? Can confirm it's a magnet. Magnet. And there's a little thing to put the rock, to mount it. So you just stick it on there. There you go. And it's funny, the magnet is like a little, your Zonai glue, I guess, to attach it to things. The second one here is a cooking pot. The portable pot. There we go. Perfect. So we got a portable pot and rockets. So we got a little thingy here to show us all the different ones you can get. But these are the two I ended up with, which honestly, fair enough. In Tears of the Kingdom itself, these are probably the ones that I use the most. The little capsule's pretty cute too. It's got a little bit of a pattern on it. And this is a little tin my wife picked out. I think there's cookies in here. Let's confirm. Is it cookies? Yeah, they're little inkling cookies. Little inkling cookies. That's pretty cute. I think we more just wanted the tin itself though. And we got so many Pikmin plushes. So many. The Nintendo store was great. It was well decorated. You got all these cool statues, you know, Mario, the default Inkling, I guess. You got your Link statue. It looked awesome. And yeah, the store was just very well laid out, very well decorated, very awesome vibes in there. I found it a little odd that there was such a lack of Kirby representation there. Not that I expected there to be as much Kirby merch as, say, for Mario or DK, but still this shelf with towels and washcloths was all they had. But later in the week, we found a dedicated Kirby cafe with its own gift shop, and that kind of made up for it. Kirby just gets his own store. And that's where I got this cute notebook. Kirby Cafe. Unfortunately, the cafe itself was by reservation only. Okay, here's the pen it comes with. It's actually, just feeling it, it's actually a pretty nice pen, just feeling it. I thought it was pretty cute. It's graph paper. I didn't expect that. But back to the Nintendo store, even more pitiful than Kirby's selection was their Metroid representation. This little shelf was all there was. That's it. And I know Metroid's not as popular in Japan, but like, wow. There was also no Pokemon stuff there, and that's because they also get their own store, the Pokemon Center, which actually has a lot of locations in Japan. For the ones that we went to, unfortunately, aside from having a rad-as-hell display at the entrance, the actual store itself was a little underwhelming when it comes to, you know, the merch and stuff that they were selling. Maybe it's because I'm only casually into Pokemon, whereas meanwhile we just come out of the Nintendo store and Pikmin, Splatoon, and Zelda are just like way more exciting for me, but even my son said it was kind of underwhelming. I mean, they had plushes, but that display at the entrance was seriously so cool. The other Pokemon Center we visited had this Rayquaza statue instead, and that was also friggin' cool. But again, entrance displays, I think they put all their budget into that. Mewtwo in a big tube is never not going to be cool, but just the stuff at the store that you could buy, it was just, I don't know, not that interesting. The Studio Ghibli Museum was something we couldn't pass up doing. I don't talk a lot about movies on this channel, but I have never seen a Studio Ghibli film that I didn't love. Ghibli? Ghibli? Apparently it's both. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to take any photos or videos inside the building whatsoever. So enjoy this one photo of the building exterior while I talk about it. It was a really cool experience though. You get to go watch a short film about a puppy, which was very cute. And the whole place was filled with concept art and film cells, tons of behind the scenes stuff, and paintings by Miyazaki himself. It was great. I definitely recommend it. This is the little information pamphlet. So you can kind of get an idea of the layout of the building and its location in the city here. We got a couple of little souvenirs and goodies from there, including the tickets themselves, which house a few frames of actual film. They did have little projectors that you could put the film into to see the whole picture, which was really cool. The paintings were all very expensive, so we kind of just got the postcards, but they're really quaint, they're really cute. While in Tokyo, we also did a day trip to Disney Sea and Tokyo Disneyland. Now, I've been to the Disney parks in California, so most of Disneyland itself was pretty comparable to that location, though much less busy. It is interesting to see the difference of what is popular there compared to out west, though. Star Tours is their only Star Wars attraction between both parks. We went on it twice, and there was no line whatsoever. We fully walked in both times. Otherwise, it's what you'd expect. It's a small world, Big Thunder Mountain, which I think might be my favorite, Haunted Mansion, the racist version of Splash Mountain, the castle, the usual Disney stuff. It was fun, but strange how not busy it was. I've been to the California Disneyland twice, both times in like the off season, and the space in front of the castle is frankly always a crapshoot. If you want to get your photos in, you're gonna have to deal with the crowds. Here there was like nobody in the way, and there was capacity for all of these lines that just never filled up. I'm not sure if it was the timing of when we went or what have you, but I'm not complaining. We got to go on loads of rides with minimal wait times. Disney Sea, on the other hand, was something completely different and way busier than the other park. I guess it could be seen as Tokyo's equivalent to like California Adventure across from Disneyland in California, but completely unique. There's a lot more focus on newer Disney properties like Tangled and Frozen, whereas Disneyland proper is a lot of classic Disney. So maybe that's where the difference lies, with a greater public interest in those newer properties. The rides were pretty good, what can I say? Journey to the Center of the Earth probably being the best one there. Very thrilling, very fast ride, though felt a bit on the short side. The Raging Spirits ride, or as I'm calling it, Zonai Pillars, was also very good, probably a close second for me. One final bit of tourism that we needed to do in Tokyo was at a place called TeamLab Planets. It was essentially a sort of interactive art gallery, and it was actually pretty cool. At first, I thought it was treading into kinda corny, pretentious territory. I was skeptical about going into an art gallery that asked me to take off my shoes and roll up my pant legs so I could walk through a wet, dark room, and then look at LEDs on strings and touch glowing orbs. But it was genuinely a cool experience. I would do it again, but man, I can't help but wonder how many phones got dropped and subsequently ruined in all of those water rooms. It was really cool though. There was a couple of different exhibits, and I think the water area was the best one. It was just all very cool, very stimulating and immersive. From Tokyo, we took the Shinkansen, aka the bullet train, to the Namba district in Osaka. We ended up staying in an Airbnb just a few blocks from Dotonbori, which is frankly a stressful place to navigate if you don't like crowds. But otherwise, Namba was a pretty nice, convenient area to stay that was really close to transit, as well as all sorts of shopping and amenities. Naturally, since we already did Disney, we also made sure to set aside a day to check out Universal Studios Japan. Now, as was the case with Disneyland, I have also been to the park in California, but USJ was pretty different from their Hollywood park. There were a lot more attractions and rides there in Japan than in California. But most importantly, the Donkey Kong Country section of the park was open, which was not the case when I went to California in 2023. We scoped out pretty much all of USJ, but this was my favorite part of the park. Even more than the main Mario-themed Super Nintendo world, which is also great, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, I like Donkey Kong. So we had to check out the minecart ride, of course, which is frankly a great pre-baked in concept for a theme park attraction, ripped right from the Donkey Kong Country games. And they did a really good job with it. Essentially, the minecart tracks that you can actually see are a total facade. They are just for show. The carts are actually on a hidden set of tracks underneath the visible minecart tracks, which allows them to essentially have brakes and simulate jumps, you know, without actually throwing people in the air. It was a really cool way for them to portray what is a staple part of those games. The whole vibe of the area was spot on too. You got DK's house, Golden Temple, all of this stuff. It was clearly based very heavily on Donkey Kong Country Returns specifically, but that's fine. I guess until Bonanza releases this summer, that is the most up-to-date version of the Donkey Kong universe. You know, since Tropical Freeze is a direct sequel to Returns that takes place in the same world. And Returns HD did just release earlier this year for Switch, so it all works. They also have the Yoshi's Adventure Ride, which California does not, but the lineup was long, and when we realized what the ride actually was, we ended up passing on it. No hate to my boy Yoshi, his is the power-up band I chose after all, but this just didn't seem worth waiting 90 minutes for. Aside from that, USJ was good. I ended up sitting out of that Jurassic Park ride because I'm a wimp. I looked at it and said, that's too much time spent upside down for me, no thanks. And also maybe I'm psychic or something, because we were in line for the Hollywood Dream ride, and I started getting this weird, anxious gut feeling. We finally got up to the boarding platform and my stomach was just churning with unease. So at the last minute, I kind of ducked out and said, you know what, I'm gonna wait at the exit for you guys. My wife and son boarded the ride, but before it could even start, they closed the ride due to weather issues. So they ended up not being able to go on the ride either. It was weird. It was like I could feel something was gonna go wrong. Always trust your gut, folks. Or trust my gut? I don't know. Anyways, yeah, USJ was great, as expected. Super Nintendo World in general is just packed with details, like hidden Pikmin, which is also the case for all of the Nintendo stores and the other Nintendo sections of the Universal parks. But there is just overall a wonderful attention to detail. You can find the 4 Kong letters spread throughout the Donkey Kong Country area, just like in the game. Funky's shop is there, just like in Tropical Freeze. And you can play some drums to summon Rambi. There's also this awesome Cranky Kong animatronic that you can see while in line for the minecart ride, and he looks great. I'm guessing he tells you off, but it was in Japanese, so I have no idea what he was actually saying. Squawks seemed pretty chill though. This is really a great addition to Super Nintendo World, and I would love to see them continue expanding into other franchises. A Zelda area that is as well done as this Donkey Kong area would be something really special. Now, of course, while I was working on this video, the Epic Universal Park opened up in Orlando. I think it's Orlando, and it looks near identical to the USJ park, so I guess me sharing this with you is a little less special. But that said, I have no plans to go to Florida either, so you know, there's that. Of course, we came away with some merch, like this sweater, and my DK barrel, because I'm a sucker apparently. Actually, I haven't opened this yet, so let's see what's in here. I think it's cookies. Wait, what the heck? There's noodles in here. They're like little twirly pastas. Well, it's some kind of crunchy snack. Really, the barrel is what I wanted. I guess it doubles as a piggy bank, but I just saw the barrel. I was like, yeah, I want that. And look at this pen I got. He goes, I don't know, that's just fun. Oh my god, they're playing the shop theme. They're playing the shop theme in the Nintendo store. So naturally, we had to check out the Osaka location of the Nintendo store as well, despite the fact that we already went to the Tokyo store, but I had no regrets. Osaka actually had slightly different inventory, and there was some stuff I considered getting in Tokyo and then passed up, so it was nice to have a second chance and actually scoop them. Wait, is it nice, or did I just trick myself into buying something I didn't need? This one I had already opened, but it was like a blind box of Pikmin enemies, and I got myself a fiery blowhog. We also got this one. It's the iridescent flint beetle. And then they had another little blind box that was a variety of actual Pikmin you could get rather than just Pikmin enemies. We ended up getting this white Pikmin. I guess it's supposed to be like a little, I don't know, coin tray or something. Just a little tray for a little guy. I also grabbed this shirt, which I did not open. Let's open it. They really packaged this. And personally love this artwork. I think it just kind of captures the vibe of the original Legend of Zelda. It's a really nice shade of green. So yeah, that's my shirt. One set of amiibo I was missing, but saw there because the Nintendo stores all have great amiibo selection, was the Pearl and Marina amiibo from Splatoon's side order. Yeah, they look great. Of course they do. And then I ended up getting this notebook and pen. They're not like a set, but I got them with the idea of using them together. Now, say what you will about Tears of the Kingdom. I love this design, okay? I think it looks fantastic. I love the gold, the concentric circles. I don't know, man. And then you can see on the spine, there's the classic Zonai circles. Come on, focus. There we go. So the pages have this along the bottom, though, which is nice. Here we go. Ooh. Ooh, this one's nice. It is not plastic. Nope. This is metal. And again, oh, look at Triforce power at the top. Then wisdom, then courage. I'm really impressed with this one, jeez. Like the Tokyo store, the Metroid and Kirby sections here were lacking, and while Metroid continues to suffer, Kirby once again had its own separate store in Osaka. I think it was a pop-up store, but it was pretty cute. And yeah, we got another shirt. So next thing I want to talk about is World Expo, which was actually one of the main reasons for going on this trip in the first place. So the World Expo 2025 in Osaka is ongoing from mid-April until mid-October. Literally the only thing I knew about Expo before deciding to go was that my hometown of Vancouver hosted Expo in 1986, which is why we built the SkyTrain and Science World. But it was neat to go and be there and see something as big and historic as this. For those who don't know, like I didn't, the Expo is where the world's many nations come together. They get their own pavilions, where they can show off their culture, and talk about what they're doing in the world stage as it relates to the event's theme. That theme being designing future society for our lives. So naturally, there was a lot of focus on things like sustainability and environmentalism, which was awesome. But also there was some creepy stuff, which we'll get into in a moment. So yeah, it was cool to see all of the world's many nations get together, contribute, and set up shop. The event venue is laid out in and around this giant, massive wooden structure called the Grand Ring, which is currently the world's largest wooden structure. And there were so many pavilions. You had the likes of Japan, the host of course, the Netherlands, the UK, Spain, Korea, Ireland, the US, France, Austria, Serbia, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Germany, Luxembourg, Malaysia, the Philippines, Italy, Turkey, Qatar, Turkmenistan, Singapore, Belgium, Thailand, Australia, Switzerland, Brazil, China, Czechia, the Nordic Circle, 7-Eleven, and Gundam. There were also art installations and private companies in the tech industry that had pavilions as well, with mixed interpretations of the event's theme. I think Japan themselves had one of the most interesting pavilions, with a heavy emphasis on sustainable research, particularly with the use of algae. A lot of other countries chose instead to focus on their artistic culture and history. Austria had a really fun music-themed exhibit. Czechia decided to dedicate their entire pavilion to just one artist. Imagine being that guy. Colombia said, hey, we have coffee. Canada's pavilion ended up being kind of lame. They really leaned into some stereotypes with the whole iceberg-themed aesthetic. Thanks for that, guys. But I see what they were going for. It was supposed to be this neat little AR experience, so they would give you like tablets to use, and using the tablet camera, things would populate in the room around the icebergs. It was neat when it worked properly, which was only about half the time. Though what was really nice was that the staff there let us just jump the line because we were Canadian. Shout out to the Canadian pavilion staff. A non-sarcastic thanks for that one, guys. The US pavilion, meanwhile, was basically just the NASA exhibit.
Greetings to everyone in the US Pavilion in Osaka.
And in fairness to them, that was probably the most fair and likable way for them to approach things, you know, given the event's theme. I'm sorry to say that China's pavilion was a total drag. It was very much just a museum to their history, which is fine, but the delivery was lengthy and dry. It was just a long, drawn-out stream of information being unloaded on you. I actually think Spain kinda nailed the assignment with their big science-themed area first, and then a bit of cultural showcase after that, and some optional dining if you didn't mind paying a little more to really put the button on things. Korea had a fun one. They went all in on K-pop as their cultural showcase, and I'm not a K-pop guy, but it was fun. As for the national pavilions, there was a lot of different stuff going on. The women's pavilion was pretty neat. Pretty worthwhile. Big focus on different walks of life and sort of the human experience, but they end up sort of separating you into groups and then funneling you down these different pathways, and each area had different stuff in it, so you actually can't see everything that pavilion had to offer on a single visit, which is too bad because I would have liked to have seen those other things without having to like get back in line or something. There was a Mars mission control thing. It was fully fictional, more of a game than an exhibit, where everyone is given tablets and then participates in the story. It was actually really well done, but fully carried by the actors running the show, who all did a great job. Apparently the thing is put on by Saudi Arabia, but all the staff were Australian, so I don't really know what was going on behind the scenes at all. The gameplay part of it was not a lot. It was essentially just dragging and dropping different things on the tablet screen, which is fine. But when you've got everyone in the room sort of working together and good performers to carry the show through, I don't know, there's just sort of an energy to it. And I can't stress enough that these guys were very funny.
Launch morning, so I assume everyone's got their flight suits on. Okay. Okay, it appears that none of you have your flight suits on. Okay, engineers, can I remind you that on a launch morning we should be in our regulation flight suits just like this one? Okay, you're all looking a little messy. In fact, let's have a look at you.
There was a pavilion called the City of the Future, including the Mina Theater, which touted itself as something that was going to be super impactful, like they were gonna blow your minds, but in execution was a little corny. In essence, the whole thing was them shouting at you, "We need to choose a better future, so choose that," followed by a 2-question survey and a happy resolution that talks nothing about the practical side of actually doing that. It was a whole theater dedicated to telling everyone in the audience that society should have better healthcare, accessibility, education, and food, all while bringing no ideas to the table for what we should actually do to get there. Also, for a place called City of the Future, it had some of the absolute worst CGI animation I had ever seen. Very ironic. Especially since the Gundam Pavilion next door had these laser space battles going on. Speaking of which, the Gundam thing was really interesting. It was meant to be like a space elevator that you would go on, and then you'd be in the space station, and then a laser space battle with robots would happen around you. I think if I was into Gundam or knew anything about Gundam, that it would have been awesome. But I don't, so I think it was, I don't know, It was cool. It did feel a little bit more like an amusement park ride that I would have seen at like Disney or Universal rather than like a pavilion at Expo, but hey, it was neat, I guess, and it was nice to like have something in there that was like a little bit of a shake-up. There was one pavilion called the Future of Life Pavilion, which was meant to be a cool concept, but the whole thing felt horribly dystopian to me. The whole thing was like this weird guilt trip designed to make you feel bad for dying later because other people will be sad when you do. And I get that. So you should download your mind into an android so you can escape the shackles of mortality. And then they had whatever this was at the end of it. I can't shake the feeling that they were using us Expo attendees as some sort of weird test audience to see how well people would respond to the concept. Because hidden in the terms and conditions of entering this pavilion, they casually mention that they're measuring your heart rate and vitals throughout the presentation. Great. Meanwhile, there was the Dynamic Equilibrium of Life Pavilion, which was a total 180. It argued that life is valuable because it is finite and cyclical, so you kind of just gotta make the best of it while you're here, which frankly resonated with me far better. Maybe it's because I know that the Android technology is not gonna happen in my lifetime, or that it's only gonna happen to super rich people when it first rolls out, if it ever does. But I don't know. There's that whole debate of like, ship a Theseus of your mind, I guess. But I do agree that we need to be good while we're here, and that life is finite, but it is special. I think we as humans need to come to terms with our mortality instead of dreading when you might lose it.
And this ephemeral existence called life has been passed down without interruption. This is not a history of struggle for survival, but a history of cooperation.
And then Null Squared balances all of this out with what I can only describe as a weirdly nihilistic pavilion. Visually, everything there was very cool, but whatever was going on with the messaging and the narration they had actually just spiked my anxiety somehow. Like I left that exhibit with a pit in my stomach.
Semiotically associated with hunting and existing now with strict semiotic rules and mushrooms whose subterranean mycelial networks exemplify non-hierarchical, non-semiotic activity.
Unfortunately, a lot of stuff there was promoting AI, including showing off AI-generated art. Now look, don't at me. I'm not pro AI, you're not going to change my mind on that. Automation was supposed to be there to ease manual labor, not replace human artistic expression. And given that the theme was supposed to be designing a better future, sustainability, and environmentalism, it just didn't sit right with me personally. And look, I get it for big tech companies, but I was especially disappointed to see some countries incorporate AI-generated video into some of their presentations about their culture. The worst offender I noticed was Malta. About half of their presentation used AI-generated video, which is too bad because the other half of their presentation, which used like cameras and actors, was actually very well done. But it also further highlighted how bad the AI-generated stuff was when you're seeing them literally right next to each other in the same video. A very cool pavilion was called EarthMart, which mostly just had a lot of interesting data about global food consumption and the environmental costs of farming. Now, this is not me saying that farming is bad. Somehow, we as a society need food to eat, but farming does come with a cost. It costs resources to produce things. And it was all presented in a very engaging package. It was well done. I also appreciated the Blue Ocean Dome, which was of course about like pollution and trash in the ocean. Nothing that you haven't heard before, I'm sure. And even if you've heard about it before, that doesn't mean it isn't still important. I could go on and on. There was honestly so much to see at Expo, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface in this video. We spent 3 days at Expo, and I think we saw less than half of the pavilions there. But also, woof, this runtime, and I could feel the engagement dropping off this video as we speak. So, let's move on. And then they said, now these are the way out. From Osaka, it's a pretty quick train ride to Kyoto. Now, we only spent a single day in Kyoto due to time constraints, but that one day was pretty rad. We had a reservation for the Nintendo Museum at 11:30, but we figured we'd head out a little early, specifically to peek at the actual Nintendo office. So we did. We took some photos, got glared at by security, normal stuff. It was a bit surreal, actually. Standing outside that building, it's so modest looking, which is wild considering how many absolute masterpieces have been created inside those walls. But okay, to the museum, which is actually pretty close by to the Nintendo office. Upon entry, they give you one of these, with your name and entry time printed on it. I didn't expect this, to be honest with you, but there is a reason for it. And that reason is coins. You get 10 coins loaded onto your museum pass that you need to spend in order to unlock the various activities that the museum has to offer. I was worried that this would be too restrictive, but by the time we were ready to go, we actually hadn't spent all the coins that we had. So I guess it ended up being a non-issue. The inside of the museum has 2 floors. The first floor is very interactive. Lots of games to play. Nintendo Classics played pretty much exactly how you'd expect, as well as being able to play some games on these giant controllers. There's a little game using the Ultra Hand, not that Ultra Hand, this Ultra Hand, an NES light gun game, which I actually did pretty well at. I got silver. And of course the gift shop where I bought this shirt. All good stuff. I tried out a few games. Playing on the big controllers was pretty novel and far more challenging than I expected. In the classic console area, it was pretty much exactly what you'd expect. Just lots of timed virtual console demos where you could play for like 15 to 20 minutes. Though I didn't realize until it was too late that I missed my chance to actually play a game I've never played before. They had Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War there, in Japanese of course. When I went in, I just selected English by default, but as you may know, there is actually no English version of that game. It's a Japan exclusive. So when you go in and select English, it doesn't let you choose that game. And I didn't see it in the roster until it was too late. Alas, I missed my chance. The real, actual reason to go to the museum is what's on the second floor. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to take any photos or videos up there, with just a few exceptions, like looking out this window. Yes, actually. They also had an actual Switch 2 out for display there, which you could also take photos of. No, you couldn't touch it or try it out or play a demo or anything on it, but you could just look at it. Great. But the rest of the second floor of the museum was really awesome. They had their company and console history, as well as tons of games out on display, including some prototype stuff that I had never seen before. I loved seeing this stuff and going through Nintendo's rich history like this, but why couldn't I take any photos? Maybe they figured that if all of this stuff was online, that nobody would actually go to the museum to see it, but if you ask me, it would be more like free advertising. Come on, Nintendo. Anyway, so since I was allowed to take photos in front of the Switch 2, I guess you can see some of the actual museum part of the museum in the background here. That gripe aside, if you're a Nintendo fan and you find yourself in Kyoto, get yourself some tickets to the Nintendo Museum. You probably saw this coming, but yes, we also went to the Nintendo Kyoto store for just one more round of shopping. And this is where I finally caved and got myself one of these Link statues. Now, I had been eyeing these at each Nintendo store, but I got mixed up about the price because I saw the first one and thought it cost like 30,000 yen or like $300, but it doesn't. It costs about $60 per statue, and then you can get like a bundle with like all of them for $300 or something like that. So I got this one and the Pikmin statue for my son. I'm sure he's going to want to open this himself, but we might as well open this one right now. Here's my boy. I might just leave him in here. But, you know, he's got the Master Sword and Hylian shield on his back there. This is very great. Like, it's very detailed. I think he looks great. Very much it's Twilight Princess Link. I don't know. Not sure what else there is to say about him. Of course, the stores themselves had, like, the big statues. So all of these little ones are, like, clearly just a miniaturized version of those. However, this one is actually more proportionately accurate. If you've seen photos of the big statues, they're often taken from a lower angle because the statue's up higher. The actual statue's like more stout looking than he ever shows up in photos to be. It's like some kind of weird illusion going on there. But this is more actual like Link proportions, which is good. I also ended up buying the 4-pack of the Champion amiibos. The Tears of the Kingdom Sage amiibos are not yet available, but they did have the 4-pack of the Champion amiibos. Now, I actually already have these amiibos, but individually, not in a 4-pack. So I might sell them individual ones and just keep the 4-pack. My biggest worry with, and this goes for when I bought the other amiibos, is always the backing of the cardboard when transporting it. I was like really trying to be as careful as I could packing this stuff to make sure that this backing didn't get all bent out of shape. Yeah, there we go. My wife had been, there's a cat hair on this. My wife had been eyeing this hat since the Tokyo store and then again at Osaka and then Kyoto. So finally I was just like, just get it. This is our last chance. And so we got this Splatoon hat. Again, Splatoon is kind of her obsession. Now, if you don't know, before Nintendo made toys or video games, not in that order, they were a card company, specifically Hanafuda cards. Now, I haven't opened these yet, so we're gonna just carefully do that. And, oh, interesting, push, it says. Here's the box of Hanafuda. They also did give us this, your first Hanafuda playing cards. And kind of an introduction to how it goes. So that was neat. Sir, what are your thoughts on the current election cycle? Me too. Nara Park was one of my favorite places to visit. Nara used to be the capital of Japan, and it is all around gorgeous. Apart from this absolutely stunning 8th century Buddhist temple, which is incredibly well kept, especially for how old it is, the main attraction is the deer. They are all over the place and practically domesticated. There are vendors who will sell food that you can feed them. You are not supposed to just feed them whatever, and the deer will exchange a polite bow with you. And it's all very weirdly wholesome. Very good. Very good. Don't get me wrong. The rest of the park is beautiful. The stone lanterns, the archways, the nature, the old buildings. I love all of that stuff. However, I love animals. So it was very memorable for me to be able to go up and have such direct interactions with them. Look, we have deer back home, but they are timid, skittish creatures. So it's cool to be able to just go chill with them, give them a little snack, and even pet them. Big Greg energy. Greg! Just remember to wash your hands. On our return flight, we left Saturday evening, the 26th, took another 10-hour flight, and landed back in Vancouver on Saturday morning, making for the longest Saturday of my life. We time traveled back in time, but the jet lag wasn't too crazy after we got home, thanks to the sheer exhaustion allowing me to fall asleep very easily. So you may be asking, what's the takeaway here? I don't know either, but I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, as a Nintendo fan especially, I kinda always wanted to go to Japan because it was where all of my favorite games were made. My stepdad had this friend who told me not to because my whiteness would cause me to be the victim of racism, that I would be discriminated against for being a foreigner. Now look, I don't know what happened in that guy's life, life, and who knows, maybe things have changed there in the last 20 to 25 years. But nobody called me a slur, okay? I got asked where I was from a few times while making small talk, but when I said Canada, I was never treated with anything but respect and curiosity. Perhaps it helped my case that I really tried to learn some polite phrases at the very least. Of course, my Canadian ass would pick up phrases like dozo and sumimasen before pretty much anything else, food included, but I digress. I was certainly never discriminated against. The worst offense I can think of is people wanting to sell me things. But I've experienced far more aggressive versions of that in Europe, including being nearly kidnapped by a Turkish cab driver so that his friend could sell me carpets. Yes, for real. That said, I think it was just cool to be somewhere so different from home for a little bit. And I have this weird thing where I enjoy learning stuff, so it was awesome to take in another culture for a while, or go to Expo and learn about tons of different countries, even if what they had to show was often very surface level. But even as a gamer, it was cool to see the difference of what was popular there compared to back home. Like, arcades are practically dead here, and the ones that are still around are kind of a novelty. But the arcade scene is doing just fine in Japan. Splatoon is crazy popular there. My wife got her nails done like so just before we left, and she got so many compliments during our trip from fellow Splatoon fans who were just excited to meet someone else that had the same interest as them, including several Nintendo store employees. It was very cute. There is Splatoon merch everywhere, and they're always sold out of Shiver plushies, aside from this one random shop we found. Feel free to interpret that information however you'd like. Oh, and speaking of which, that one random shop is where I finally got my hands on Tears of the Kingdom Masterworks. There hasn't been an English release of this book yet, so I'm gonna just have to work through it slowly, translating it with Google Lens or something as I go, but we'll see how accurate that comes out. But there we go, finally. There are some pretty stark differences between the daily hustle of life in Japan compared to my home in Canada. Now, I'm not going to claim to be a cultural expert. I only stayed there for 3 weeks. But a few things that stood out to me were just how clean and orderly urban areas were, especially Tokyo, and how great of a transit system they have there. It seems like barely anybody there drives. They just all take the train. The entire train network is frankly intimidating at first because there's just so many lines that all crisscross and intersect, but it runs so well and so efficiently that I can't help but look at our own system here in Vancouver and feel like we have some catching up to do. The whole building style and architecture is also just really different, and it was neat how many old buildings were just tucked in all over the place. However, looking at it through the lens of media I've consumed over the years, I started to come to a sort of realization that so many of the things I previously thought to be quirky, neat little bits of unique world building in movies and games are just normal things there. Wandering the suburbs of Osaka felt like stepping into a Ghibli film. The streets are just quaint in a way that's hard to describe. I always thought the settings of the Splatoon games were really neat, but it turns out that Splatoon is just normal Japan, except, you know, with squids and paint. Splatoon, Japan. Splatoon, Japan. Splatoon, Japan. Splatoon, Japan. You get the idea. I'm in the back streets of Splatsville. This isn't a bad thing, by the way. It's just interesting to reframe how I think of things and where their inspiration comes from. And I know this may sound silly, like white guy realizes that Japanese company makes games that have inspiration in Japanese things, but I don't know, it's just like more at the forefront than I thought it would be, I guess. There's a couple of Zelda games that have stamps as a collectible, which I thought was just this quirky little thing, but no, that's just a regular thing. They had stamps like everywhere, even at random train stations. And I think just about every Expo pavilion had their own unique stamp too. These cave entrances from Pikmin 4, those are real. And don't even get me started on Animal Crossing. Overall though, I found a lot of things felt to be of just higher quality there. And I don't just mean Kit Kats, though also Kit Kats. Now, I admit I'm picky about coffee, but I have never in my life tried an instant coffee that I liked until I bought one from a 7-Eleven in Tokyo. Hell, 7-Eleven in Japan is great. No offense, but I wouldn't dare trust any food from 7-Eleven back home. That's the sort of mistake you only need to make as a teenager once. But there? Hell yeah. And if you're a regular to my live streams, you probably know that I love my smoothies. Well, guess what? They got smoothie machines. You buy a cup of fruit, you scan it in the machine, stick it in, and it blends it into a smoothie right in front of you. I love that. Yeah, we had a bustling itinerary. But I did find that just sort of living and existing in a new place like that, seeing what was different, and trying new foods, is kind of my favorite part of traveling. I also really enjoyed visiting the many shrines and temples and reading about them. Every single one of them was gorgeous. And yeah, maybe I am romanticizing things a little. It isn't necessarily utopic. I mean, they have to put up anti-perv signs at escalators to say not to take upskirt photos. Good grief. And as generally courteous and polite as people are, you will get shoved by people getting on and off the train. It's just gonna happen. But at the end of the day, getting bumped by a commuter who doesn't want to be late for work is hardly the end of the world. Did I do a lot of consumerist, touristy stuff? Yes, absolutely. Is it cliche? Still yes. But you know what? I'd do it again. It's okay to be a tourist and be touristy and do tourist stuff, as long as you're having a good time, being safe, and not being rude. I mean, that's why they have touristy things to do, right? Anyways, I didn't write the last part of this script, but I do want to say thank you so much for watching. This was, again, a very different sort of video than what I usually do, and if you're new here especially, hi, welcome. Don't get too used to this format, but I appreciate you taking the time to watch through what is, without a doubt, a very lengthy video. And of course, special thanks goes out to all of my patrons and channel members, the names of which should be on screen right now. You all are awesome. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye. All good. They've got Zelda merch here. Mr. Saturn.